everyone. Welcome to Sunday Live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbale in Abuja. It was an eventful weekend, politically speaking, with the major political parties conducting party congresses in several states of the Federation. The People's Democratic Party had state congresses in about 7 states, some of which went without any drama, but others came with controversies. The states are Oyo, Kwara, Lagos, Adamawa, Borno, Kebbi, and Ebonyi State. It is necessary for the party to have conducted these elections to ensure a proper constitution of the party structure in these states before the national convention slated for the end of this month. Some of the states that had the congresses are those that have legal issues or where the state structures have been dissolved or had internal crises amongst members, cases of expiration of existing structures. The People's Democratic Party will be changing the guard of its national leadership amidst a series of internal wranglings and the contestation of who will fly the flag of the party for the 2023 presidential election. Tonight, we speak with the former Minister of Aviation and the chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Osita Chidoka. He joins us here in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure having you tonight.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin with the primaries of your party in some states. For example, they had a faction or a parallel congress yesterday, and one will wonder, when will party internal crisis end? I mean, your party is looking forward to a national convention at the end of this month, but we're seeing this kind of situation happening. People are still not happy.
Well, party internal crisis will never end, but the nature of the crisis will end. As more electoral reforms are carried out, not just in the country, but also in the political parties, as more and more people in political office realize the need to understand that the parties themselves are a product of democracy and that internal democracy is key to the party, those crises will begin to calm down. But for the most part, what you will see is that different groups will emerge in the parties. There will always be contestation for position. Candidates or potential candidates will always try to form cliques that will make sure they have an advantage. So there will always be contestation. The only part is to be resolved by a fair and transparent process. So when you lose, you know you've lost.
Why has cohesion eluded your party since 2015? The center has not held.
It's the metamorphosis of PDP. It is the evolution. PDP as a party, I've said in many fora, came to be in 1998, and by 1999 had formed the national government. It had no experience of any movement. It had no time outside of government. From the time it was formed, it went into government. So there was always a president, a central figure who wields the party together. The party had never been with distributed power authorities. So what has happened in 2015 is with the absence of the president, then there became the challenges of lack of that central figure. So in most political parties, after a while, the president, becomes the leader of the party and runs the party. But if you notice, parties that had tradition, that have history, tend to have institutions that made it possible for ANC to say, we don't want Thabo Mbeki again. And they voted a populist leader called Zuma. And when President Zuma wanted to put his wife, the same people came together and said, hell no, you're not going to have this. We want Cyril Ramaphosa. So PDP doesn't have that experience. So that is what is happening now. This internal crisis will lead to strengthening of institutions, will lead to the realization of the nature of the distributed powers, and then also see whether we can make progress in ensuring internal democracy.
So the party
is
not really used to being out of power.
No, yes.
And so the shock is still there.
Yes, it's not in his DNA.
Yeah, so,
yes.
And because I'd like to ask you, you've been a former minister. Yes. Right now, who is the leader of your party aside the elective offices of the party's national structure?
So nobody has emerged in the process of what I call a charismatic leader coming up to become the fulcrum of the party. That is difficult because what you have is an association of governors who are equals. So they really will not defer to one or the other. Some may have more influence than the other. Some governors may not be interested in the national politics. But for the most part, a charismatic leader needs to emerge in this process. But beyond having a charismatic leader, the institutions of PDP needs to be strengthened. And that strengthening of institutions will require that the party internal processes, internal primaries, election of officers will be open, free, and fair. That will ensure that the party offices will now kowtow to anybody, even in and out of office.
Well,
so that evolution is what is
one would think that
now.
former President Goodluck Jonathan is at least the latest president out of the PDP. So
Yes.
one would think that naturally he should wear the toga of the party's leader, that people should defer to him, people should make reference to him and consult him for as much as when you have difficult moments in the party, as someone who has a conscience of the party to help the party through tough times. Why has this not been happening?
So if he didn't lose the election and he handed over to another person, we've done that with Obasanjo. The moment President Obasanjo left office, we even got him out as BOT chairman. Effort to make him BOT chairman was truncated because certain other forces emerged in the party. So President Jonathan, having lost an election, I don't think he, at that time, 2015, 2016 time frame, was in the mind space to begin to play that role. And more, something that happens frequently is that you tend to see the new kids on the block. So I think he decided to allow the younger elements who are now governors and co. And something I need to let people understand is that it's interesting, but there is no PDP governor today who had been a PDP governor at the time PDP was in power. Mm-hmm. They've never seen PDP in office as governors. Mm-hmm. All of them were governors with PDP out of office. So I don't know if they realize what it means for PDP to be at power in the national, because you may see that some of the struggles may just be to control their own fiefdom. So there is need for larger national institutions, for that institution that will be able to weld these forces together towards achieving a desired goal.
So let me ask you, the national convention of the party coming up end of this month, it does look like the party is looking forward to it as a measure that will end its problems. But will the party's problem end after that convention?
Well, it depends. It depends on who emerges in the National Working Committee, and it depends on how far they are able to bring these forces together. PDP is in dire need of a lot of reforms. PDP needs to...
What kind of reforms?
Yeah, PDP needs to expand its base. Its funding structure is still weak. I don't think members are still paying their membership dues. Elected officers are not remitting their own part of their funds to the party. The party does not have a large pool of investments to draw from. Most political parties around the world always end up having large portfolios of investment that helps them to defray the cost of administering the party. So they don't depend on any governor or individual to run the party. So the party doesn't have that. The national headquarters was supposed to be built and offices leased out, and the rental income and other investments to help PDP have some funding to keep itself going. Now, the second part is that as the party begins to raise funds and become independent, then they are able to control its elected officers. So, but the challenge now is that individuals are raising the funds for their own election. Individuals are funding the party in an ad hoc manner that the party itself does not have a funding mechanism of its own to be able to stay together. The other part is that the party's membership structure and the party leadership structure across the line down to the states need to be tweaked. We're still caught in the PDP ward structures, ward and local government structures. But the truth of the matter is that Nigeria has gone beyond that. INEC has moved faster than the parties. PDP now has to have polling unit structures, not ward structure. Because you may come to a ward and you have 65 polling units. So you need to go down to the polling units because INEC is now transmitting results electronically from the polling units. So PDP structure needs to not be the 4 structure, ward, local government, state, national. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to change to a 5 structure party, meaning that the polling units will now be the fulcrum of the party, not the wards. The units, because this is where the work is done. This is where elections are won. This is where we mobilize people to come out. So the 120,000 polling units, which is going to about 140,000 now by INEC's new poll units, need to have PDP structures in those poll units. This is what we'll be offering candidates when they emerge as PDP candidates. So
I will show you, because the northern, since the party zoned the national chairmanship, swapped the zoning arrangements in the party, and zoned the national chairmanship to the north, the northern leaders in the party came together and had a consensus candidate in the person of a former Senate President, Senator Iyorchia, which I will show our viewers the profile of the man. But before I get into that, Uche Secondus and the issues around how he's being sidelined through the court, and the history of the party vis-a-vis court cases. What are your fears about? Because then, there are stories about whether or not he's under pressure to withdraw the court case, and he's come out this evening to say, I am not under any pressure to withdraw the court case. Should he not? Should he refuse to withdraw the court cases or the court case? What are your biggest fears?
Well, Uche Secondus has been the chairman of PDP and has as one of his major legacies he has put together a system of election, of primaries, that has become the envy of everybody. I mean, the last time PDP had conventions that looked like the Port Harcourt Convention was some time ago. So he had invested in the party. He had done, he's been a member of the party from state chairman all the way to national organizing secretary, deputy national chairman, and chairman of the party. I do not think that anything in his instincts, in his behavior, in his attitude will go to undermining PDP as a party. What I think failed was once a governor and a chairman goes into battle in PDP, the governor always tends to have the upper hand. But I think it should have been managed better. And managing it better will require that a lot more consensus building, a lot more negotiation should have happened despite the court cases. And I want to believe that that process is on now, that a few people have come together to ensure that the Uche Secondus-led National Working Committee does not perceive themselves as being stampeded or disgraced out of office, and they too understand that the party needs to move on.
In the real sense, in the practical terms, were they actually given a soft landing? Because that is what a lot of people thought, that Uche Secondus perhaps was given a soft landing. But in the real sense of it, was that a soft landing or some kind of
I don't think the issue is whether he's given a soft landing or
disgrace
otherwise.
Out of office.
No, I don't think that's the issue for us now. What is an issue for us now is how, for a party he has given his whole adult life to, since the last 21 years he's been involved in the party. So how he continues to engage with that party post-office, because he came into the party via an electoral process. And now that process in itself was built on consensus to bring him to office. How now that he's going, how he manages it to exit is also going to be a mark of his own statesmanship and a mark of his own character as a leader. So I'm thinking that what is most important is that there should be no triumphalism. There should be no feeling by any side that we're winning a situation.
But if he's not the one that is conducting the national convention, how would that not happen? Because it's looking like he might not be the one to conduct the national convention.
It is not about him, but the NWC that he leads is still conducting the national convention.
But he's going to
be
at
deputy chairman is conducting it because of legal issues coming from his home state.
I understand, but I'm saying psychologically and politically, you know what it means. When a national chairman sits at the Eagle Square on that kind of day and spearhead the affairs of the party at that, I mean, the whole world will be watching.
Yeah, but it's happened to the former chairman, Okinwodo. He was in Eagle Square when he was served a court judgment that, he has been removed by a court in his state. And he left Eagle Square. And the convention went ahead. Convention that nominated President Jonathan. The chairman had to leave. And Haliru came in as acting chairman and then subsequently became acting chairman of the party.
So your party is not new to this kind of situation?
It's not new. This situation is not new.
Let's for a moment, because there are a few things that we need to discuss. Let's move to, I wanted our viewers to see the profile of Senator Iyorchia, and I'd like to get your view on the kind of dispensation your party will have and what Nigerians should expect. Take a look at what the man that likely, most likely, is looking more like 90%. That is the chairman of the national chairman of the PDP. If everything, all things being equal and nothing changes, this is likely to be the next chairman of the PDP. Look at him, a former Senate president, Senator Iyorchia, later became, several times was minister for education under the military government of Sani Abacha, was the later minister of industry. He went on to take up several other roles nationally, Minister of Internal Affairs, Minister of Environment. He was the head of Atiku Abubakar presidential campaign when Atiku ran at the, under the AC at the time. So this is the profile of the man that will be handling the affairs of the party. Are you happy with this kind of choice?
Yes, that's a very good profile. He comes with a very good profile. And that profile is a measure of the vast pool of talent that is in PDP. So if you look at PDP across the country, in any region, in any zone, you're likely going to see quality people coming out to participate in PDP's leadership, both at the national level and at the state level. So it speaks to the quality of the manpower that is available to PDP. What the challenge is that PDP's current transformation is to transform to a almost a digital party, because the digital natives have come of age. Those born in 1999 are already 22 years now. By 2023, they will be 22, 23 years. So if you look at those born in 1990, people that have never lived under a military government, people that were not in primary school when the military were in office, they are the bulk of Nigeria's voting population. So what we need to do today, as we bring the established experience of politicians, we must begin also to think about how to connect with the younger demographics, the people that are actually going to vote. The people that voted for PDP in 1999, majority of them are gone and out of circulation. They are in their 60s now, 70s, and many of them constitute only about 5% of the registered voters. So if you're above 60, so the bulk of the people, 51% of our voters in Nigeria are students. So what we need to also be thinking about is that transformation I talk about, that reform. And now, going by Iyorchia's antecedents, his academic pedigree, he will be able to connect to that conversation about making that transition.
Well, we have a lot of work to do.
A whole lot of work,
which
to be very challenging.
Part of which is how your party will be able to defeat the APC. Because that's one major agenda your party has, that you want to return to power. You've tried it twice. 2015 failed. 2019 failed. I mean, you want to try it again. But let's look at some of those names have been mentioned in the race, in the People's Democratic Party. Take a look at some of the names that we've heard, that you have heard, either by rumor or by some kind of conversation that you have. These are the early permutations and potential candidates. Atiku Abubakar, Aminu Tambuwal, Bukola Saraki, Peter Obi, Balham Mohammed, Goodluck Jonathan. These are the possibilities. With these sort of persons in your party, I've had a guest on the program who said to me, Sheil, the only person that can give APC a run for their money on that list is Atiku Abubakar. And he said to me that, look, we've defeated him before, and they're likely to defeat him again if he becomes the candidate of the PDP. What's your thought?
So the person that said this is an APC?
He's an APC member.
I don't expect him to say anything different. But that's a stellar team. If you look at the people in that team of the early permutations, that's a very stellar team. One of the great things that I know about politics is that there's also the wild cards. There's also the dark horses, because both APC and PDP must present new candidates in 2023. So assuming that is anybody on that list, any of them could easily well defeat an APC candidate. I can assure you that.
Let me show you this.
Yes.
Let's flip the page. These are the names, the early potentials that have come up. Some of them have not even said whether or not they want to run. Take a look at the APC list that we have for you. And perhaps Mr. Chidoka might be able to make a comment on them. So these are some of the names that have come up in the APC. Bola Tinubu, former governor of Lagos State, APC leader. Professor Yemi Osinbajo, VP, the vice president. Yahaya Bello, governor of Kogi State. Rochas Okorocha, former governor of Imo State, Rotimi Amechi, Minister for Transport and the former governor of Rivers State, Goswe Akpabio, former governor of Akwa Ibom State, and the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs. Does it look stellar to you also?
A fairly decent team. I'll say a fairly decent team.
Not as not stellar like the list on your side.
Not as stellar as the PDP team. But that's neither here nor there. What is important, and I think that that's the conversation of 2023. 2023 is an interesting year for Nigeria. It's a year that some conversations have to be had about Nigeria. And the reason why I say so is that in 2014, 2015, President Jonathan, let me rewind back. Many Nigerians will remember that Nigeria was at a very burning stage in 1994, 93, 94, when Abiola was in prison. And the country looked like it was going to collapse, the June 12 crisis. And General Abacha convened a national conference. At that national conference, the big boys from all the ethnic groups, minus the Southwest, came to that conference. So you had General Shehu Yaradua, we had Atiku Abubakar, we had Lex Ekweme, we had Ojukwu on the conference, we had all kinds of people from all the parts of Nigeria, Mamanga Tuko. And after the conference, one of the agreements they had was that there will be a rotation, north-south rotation in Nigeria in 1995. Professor ABC also reminded me this a few days ago because he conducted the conference called Okibo in Enugu in 1995, which I participated in to distill the views of the delegates going from the south-east. Now, at that conference, we shook hands on the agreement that there will be north-south rotation. And when Abacha died, and we had another conference to review that document and then promulgated 99 Constitution, they removed the zoning. But the key elements of the 1995 Constitution persisted, which is the six-zonal structure. It didn't make it to the Constitution, but it became the norm for Nigeria and our distribution. But what has happened is that because of that agreement, it was easy for the rest of the country to say, this is the time for the Southwest to produce a president. And that was why President Obasanjo and Ekweme were the front runners in PDP. What is interesting about Vice President Ekweme's running at that time was that he was basically supported by key northerners, Alhaji Richiroma, Ali Baba and co. The MPN old war machine came to support Ekweme. Be that as it may, Obasanjo and Falaye were the two candidates. So the North and the Southeast, South-South, North Middle Belt voted for Obasanjo. The Southwest voted for Falaye, and the Northwest, some parts voted for Falaye Shinkafi because it was Shinkafi and Falaye. But that showed us that the country agreed, basically, that it was time to zone the presidency. 2003, President Obasanjo returned. In 2007, we had President Yaradua and President Buhari running against each other, two northerners. And then, of course, with President Goodluck, who came as vice president. So when Yaradua died, Goodluck now came in. Now, when Goodluck was to run in 2011, the North raised fundamental objection. They said President Goodluck was taking the northern turn. I remember very well, I was Corps Marshal at that time, when a meeting they had in the villa, General Obemudia begged the North that Jonathan was already president. This is an act of God. Let's allow him to do this, after which we will return power to the North. And the Northern delegates at that meeting grudgingly acquiesced, and that was how Jonathan became president in 2011. So there was an agreement by the PDP that it was yet the Northern turn, but because of necessity, so to speak, we allowed President Jonathan to continue. In 2015, the country said, no, Jonathan cannot go a second term because this is actually the turn of the North. So all said and done, President Buhari emerged. In 2019, because the PDP agreed that this was a northern turn to do 8 years, we all zoned the presidency to the north. So if you notice at Port Harcourt, all the 12 contestants for PDP tickets were northerners. And Vice President Atiku emerged as the candidate because there was an understanding that this is the time for the north. Now, in 2023, the country is now again to be confronted. Will northerners, after having benefited and agreed to this zoning structure, agreed to this consensus, now turn back to say zoning is undemocratic? Zoning is not to be accepted in Nigeria. People should canvass to win an election. Beautiful argument on the surface of it. But it appears to me to be some form of sophistry because the country had developed a consensus that is working. I do not see any reason why we should dismantle that consensus, that power goes north, it goes south. So the argument I have in 2023 is that the country will be asking itself the question, when are agreements in Nigeria? When do we settle a matter and said, this is settled national convention, that power goes north and south? And then the country is again confronted with a new question. If power is going to the south, which zone of the south needs to benefit from that? Some says it is a turn of the Igbos, but the Igbos are not playing national politics. Then my question is, when it was the turn of the Yorubas, they were not playing national politics, they were in AD. And PDP chose a Yoruba man that the country wanted to do business with. So it will be such an odd situation if the rest of the country doesn't find an Igbo man that is in sync with the Nigerian ideal, that can be trusted with keeping Nigeria going together. That in 1979, 9 years after the war, the northern political elites trusted Alex Ekweme to be vice president 9 years after the war. And 50 years after the war, we're still debating whether the Igbo man is playing national politics or not. There must be some agreement, some consensus that certain Igbo people behave a minority amongst the Igbos, but are joined the majority in Nigeria to form government. And I think that's the key issue in 2023. It's not something people like to hear, but I think the country must confront its demons. I was there in 2011 when that agreement about Jonathan was made. I was there in 2015 when President Jonathan picked up his phone and called President Buhari, accepting that defeat and allowing the country to go on peace. And I want to be there in 2023 when Northern and Nigerian political elites say, this national convention is something we need to follow. Let's continue with it.
We take a short break, but when we come back, there are a few more issues I'd like to take up with you. Issues of the quality and the kind of president Nigeria needs in 2000, beyond the issue of zoning, and also the indirect and direct primaries and the electronic voting. Where do we go from here? We'll take a break, and when we come back, everyone, we'll talk more and get our closing moment with Mr. Osita Chidoka. I will also be speaking with Mr. Muiz Banere, a senior advocate of Nigeria and a former legal advisor of the APC. And our conversation will be on Nigeria and the way forward. That's after our conversation with Mr. Chidoka. Join us again, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, and welcome back to the conversation. I've been speaking with a former aviation minister and a chieftain of the PDP, Mr. Osita Chidoka. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Our closing moment with you now, I'd like to go into briefly. I mean, I'm tired of thinking and realizing that we have to leave the conversation around who leads this country to issue of ethnicity and religion. It sounds bizarre, it sounds weird, and it sounds not just right for me. It's maybe a personal feeling. I think we should have a conversation around the quality of the persons that we need to see in power. This is an enormously blessed nation that we cannot subject the leadership of this country to just ethnicity.
Well, it is, I call it sophistry when people tell me that we cannot subject the nation. This nation is a nation that has been built on consensus. It's the only nation in the world where people get to university because of where they come from. They get admission to university. It's the only country in the world where the federal government set cut-off marks, lower for one group and higher for another. Why are we suddenly changing the dynamics of our country? Our country is unique. It's the only country where you have minor ethnic groups and major ethnic groups aligned in a way that welded us together into a marriage. It's the only country that survived the civil war. And after the civil war, there were no victors, no vanquished. The country moved on. Our country is unique in its way. What we need now, where we are today, is that the country needs to find that quality of a Nigerian that we're looking for. And how to do it is that the whole idea of zoning is not supposed to be permanent. The Abacha conference brought it out well. He said single-term presidency, 5 years for each zone, and after the 30 years rotation, we will abolish zoning and allow anybody to run. So the country people have come with a sense of belonging to the Nigerian project. And that for me was a brilliant idea, because you have to build a nation first before you can begin to talk about all these other issues. If the people in, and I can tell you, It doesn't even matter whether a country is successful or not. The most successful part of Spain is the part that wants to exit from Spain. Quebec wants to exit from Canada, not because they are poorer, not because they have no infrastructure. It is that feeling of alienation, that feeling of not being brought together. I'll tell you a story. General Atahiru died as Chief of Army Staff, and General Ahanotu was the Chief of Army Plans and Operations. So with General Atahiru dead, they were classmates, they were best of friends. General Ahanotu grew up in the north. He even began to contact his father's family much later in his career. And then somebody said, oh, General Ahanotu will be appointed Chief of Army Staff. And they said, no, it's not possible. And I said, why? I said, oh, he's an Igbo man. He hurt me. He pained me. Not because they said he's an Igbo man. I'm saying, how can somebody who have sacrificed his life for a nation, signed up to give his life in the army, be told you cannot get a position because of where you come from? That was painful. I'm saying that what we need in Nigeria is to first get everybody to accept that Nigeria is a home for you all. Everybody can aspire and get to any part in Nigeria. That was the beauty of Nigeria, that you cannot be disenfranchised because of birth, because of your family, because of where you come from. Once we overcome that stage, I can assure you, Nigerians will vote for that person who they know will deliver on the job of president.
Because we need to close now the conversation with you and move to the next guest. The direct, indirect primaries, transmission of result electronically, how does that come to you?
It comes to me as progress. All we need
you
to
as
do,
a politician, we have only one option of a direct primary.
Yes. If you want to win an election, I always have the feeling that because of the way we do our primaries, the candidates are not ready by the time they win the primaries. They are not known by the public because they have been busy canvassing within a small group of people. Now that you have to win within a broader large of people, the most popular candidates will emerge out of the parties. What is required is for the infrastructure of INEC to be made available to the parties. So in every ward, you can have maybe 5 voting points. Everybody come out and vote, bring your voter's ID card, your party card and your voter card. If it is accredited, then you vote. That way, we're going to have the whole of Nigeria participating. And that will also help to dealing with this issue of zoning. At the end of the day, the most popular candidate, the person that organizes most, the person that out-organizes everybody, wins that primaries. And when he wins the primaries, he already has the infrastructure for the general election. The people will already be easy for him to be sold. So I think that giving the direct primaries is going to be good for our democracy. Electronic transmission is a must for us to solve the problem of rigging. By the time you do 130,000 polling units submitting his result, it will be impossible to go to the 8,000 words collation point to start changing figures. So that in itself will promote transparency in elections.
Mr. Osita Chidoka, former aviation minister and a PDP chieftain, thank you so much indeed for coming today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.